Okay, awesome. All right, so this is great. So, Kimberly, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your nonprofit origin story?
Certainly, certainly. Kimberly B. Lewis, and I am the president and CEO of Goodwill Industries of East Texas, headquartered in Tyler, Texas, which incidentally was just named as the top city in Texas to
Wow,
live in.
that's
So we're
amazing.
very proud of that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And so, like, just a little bit of the background. How long have you been working in nonprofit? What kind of nonprofits have you supported in the past?
Yes, I have been working in nonprofits for almost about 24 years now.
Mhm.
And I started out through in my nonprofit journey as a volunteer. And I always tell people, don't shrug on volunteer work because you can learn a lot, you give back. It allows you to find out more about the community and how to really serve and help people.
Mhm.
So through my volunteer work, I was, started working with an organization and it turned into a job, a position. And I was working with an organization called Family Assistance Management. And we served as a rep payee for individuals who needed someone in their corner to make sure that their dollars were properly used, that they were taken care of financially. So a lot of our clientele had chronic illnesses, and if you went in the hospital and you ended up staying much longer than you thought, you might get home and find out that you've been evicted, uh,
Yeah.
that your bills haven't been paid, someone else has moved in, or people that you put in charge of your finances have gone through your bank account. And
Wow.
so we would oftentimes be appointed by Social Security or some other entity to serve as their rep payee. And we would set up budgets for them and those kinds of things. And so I went from doing that and actually became the assistant director of that particular organization, then to a succession of other nonprofits. Carolina Youth Development Center, which was a center for children who were out of foster care or had been in abusive situations and needed an emergency shelter. We had a very large campus and we served children from infancy all
Wow.
the way up to age 21. And so we even had built an offsite unit of apartments, so that, or not built, but we ran those apartments, and the foster youth that were aging out of the system but still needed some direction and needed some support. We
Yeah.
were that support for them. Then I went to Ashley Hall School and worked in that private school environment, but in the fundraising capacity. And
Okay,
so
cool.
that gave me a whole different realm of experiences and,
Yeah.
learning about all the different software and how do you choose software and how do you implement it and all of the headache problems that come with implementation. Um, and my first Goodwill job was actually in Huntington, West Virginia.
Okay.
And actually, I skipped one. My first directorship, if I will, my first leadership position, executive position, was with the large literacy organization in Charleston, South Carolina, which is where I'm from.
Love it.
And I ran that for about a year and a half, and then had an opportunity to work for Goodwill, and began working for Goodwill in the West Virginia area, and stayed there for 10 years. And then I said, okay, I need a new challenge. I've done everything plus that I've come to this area to do. And the Goodwill here was looking for a director, executive director. And so I've been here now for 11 years. So it's
Amazing.
been a long career. But what I love, love, love about the work that I do with Goodwill, we are a social enterprise. So that's nonprofit and business. So the social work certainly is the nonprofit work that we do in the community. And then the enterprise work is that we use the sales from our retail stores and other operations. In my case, we also do manufacturing. So we use the proceeds from that to support the mission.
Yeah,
And
I love
so, you're not constantly begging for dollars. You're not constantly, trying to find dollars to support one program. And it gives us so much freedom to be able to provide the programming that our community needs.
I think it's great. I honestly look at the social enterprise piece as maybe that's where the future of nonprofit needs to be a little bit more focused, or maybe there's more opportunities there that are
Mhm.
being underutilized for sure. So I think very cool to see what Goodwill's been doing, and your long career is a great testament to. I love to hear when people are like, "Oh no, I've still been in it, and I was here for 10 years, and like now 11 years," and I think that's a really beautiful indicator as well of
Yeah, yeah.
your time in the work. So you've been in nonprofit for a very long time. What would you say are some of your favorite parts of the work?
Well, certainly my favorite part of the work is giving back to the community. I used to be, prior to me getting into nonprofit, I was a journalist.
Oh, very cool. I love
Yes,
that.
I was a newspaper journalist, and my first love is writing. And so I love to write. I love interviewing people and telling their stories. Everybody has a story. You just have
Yes,
to know which questions to ask.
that's very, very true.
And so I love that portion of it, but I felt like, you know what? I really want to do more. I want to be able to help in a deeper, more meaningful way. Because with a story, you do that one story, you move on to the next one.
Yeah,
And I really want to do more. So I really am so grateful that now my invocation matches my vocation.
I think
And
that's
exactly what
very
makes
good.
my heart sing is what I get to do every single day. So really it's serving people. And even though I'm in the administrative portion of it, I get out a lot and I talk to the people who are in our Good Tech Academy. I talk to individuals who are in our job placement or job readiness. And I speak to our shoppers and our donors all the time too. So I make sure that I'm getting out and I see and feel what people are seeing and feeling and get their perspective and what's working and what's not working. And I see the impact every single day.
It's so valuable. It's
Mhm.
so valuable. And I know it's such an easy thing to get lost, like that consistent listening to the community. It's a real challenge, right? I'm experiencing it myself often with the Nonprofit Hive, where I'm kind of doing what you do, where I'm like, okay, so on Thursdays, I take 3 Hive chats just to meet new people and hear
Right.
why they joined and what's their reason. And then
Mhm.
I also try to sprinkle it through and go, here's who else can I ask questions of? What's working? What did they love? Is there something that I'm missing? Because I just am not asking them what they need, right? Or what would be a real, like, or workshopping, hey, I've got this cool idea. And if I get shot down by, 7 out of 10 people, I'm like, maybe this is not a great idea. It was a great idea to me, but
Yeah.
that's not what the community needs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So staying focused like that, I love that you do
Yeah.
that and seeing the impact. That's very cool.
Yeah. Well, Tasha, I can tell you, you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Kudos to you. You're
Thank you.
doing a great job. One of my first chat was with you.
I
And
know, it was amazing. I stole you for that first chat.
yeah,
So, no, I really appreciate it. And now there's all the positives and, I love seeing more impact and storytelling, love storytelling so much, but what are some of the challenges,
mm,
in this long career that you kind of have either seen carried through or maybe new challenges also that you
mhm.
see coming up?
Well, I think, there's so many challenges that we're still kind of muddling through as a result of COVID. Still trying to muddle through how people work. They've
Yeah.
returned to work, but they're working differently
Yeah.
and not in the ways that we perhaps were used to. You have more remote workers, you have um, workers who have more family and lifestyle needs that need to be addressed. And
Yeah.
so you have to be much more flexible. Certainly, expenses have skyrocketed across the board. So
Yeah.
whether it is people forget that nonprofits pay the light bill. We pay
Yeah.
phone bills. We have to pay for facilities and properties and leases, and if you have vehicles, you have to pay for all of those things. You still have to pay for, and all of those costs have gone up exponentially. So it is managing those administrative dollars, keeping your admin low. That's the other thing that runs me crazy when you are seeking funding from another entity or a grant, it's almost as if they expect your entire organization to run via volunteers and air
Yeah.
because they want your administration to be 12%. Who does that? Who can survive? You
Well,
know,
no successful business, like a for-profit, would ever be asked to run a margin like that, right?
exactly, exactly. And you can't.
Yeah.
And so, some have kind of moved away from that. Others are looking at it differently, but it's still a struggle, paying, we pay benefits. Most
Yeah.
of my employees are full-time employees with benefits. And, the health insurance is astronomical.
Yeah.
And so and we pay the majority of their health insurance. So trying to maintain that and also make sure that you have enough money to operate all of your facilities and then pass it through to your mission services so that you can actually do and perform and be successful at your mission. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's always been a struggle, but it's more of a struggle now than it's ever been.
Agreed. And I think, I'm at least, again, through some of these Hive chats, being in touch with people like yourself, reading and immersing myself in the space so frequently, attrition goes up, people leave jobs for many reasons, but, nonprofit does seem to have a higher attrition rate right now than it maybe did 10, 15 years ago. And then attrition goes up and impact goes down. Like they're so tied closely
Yeah.
together, and I think often, boards and donors probably both need to be educated about that connection. If all of a sudden you have a 40% vacancy rate at your nonprofit, well, you should expect to do at least 40% less impact. It's just you can't not have
Yeah.
those two tied together.
It still takes warm bodies to
Yes.
do a lot of the work that we do. Nonprofits are still doing a lot of that work one-on-one, face-to-face,
Yeah.
touching hands, touching lives. And and that's a huge issue, because there are so many jobs that we do that you have to have a certification to do, and not mandated by us, but mandated by the state or the entity that we're working with. And so certain jobs, they have to have a degree. Certain jobs, they have to have a certification. So that means you have to pay more
Absolutely.
for those things, or they're harder to find. And it just becomes, and so if you're not able to serve that population because of attrition, you're not going to get those referrals,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It's so true. I had a hilarious conversation, well, hilariously sad conversation
Yeah.
where my sister was shocked to find out people went to school for fundraising. And I'm like, people have master's degrees in this subject, right? And years of experience. And, and I think there's the, general population disconnect from understanding that people who work in nonprofit are often very, very well educated
Right.
individuals who have not only given of their time to get the education they require to improve on the impact at the end of the day, but have also given up opportunities to choose to do this work.
Yeah.
And so that's for sure, the overhead conversation always gets me a little itchy. But it needs to be talked about because like you noted, it's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
To do
Well,
great.
and nonprofits are highly regulated. And some people don't realize that. Our 990s are open to the public.
Yeah.
And your sister probably would not appreciate everybody knowing what she makes.
Yeah. True.
But,
She probably wouldn't. And again, that's just something she doesn't know anything about, right?
most
Uh,
people don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's like, someone is fundraised for the Humane Society and fundraised for this. Like she believes in a lot of these things. She just, it's the question mark of people giving up something to do the work. I think probably shouldn't be a conversation or it should be an in the past conversation. We clearly need to talk about it right now, but it feels like it should be something from the past that we let go. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. Okay. So
yeah.
my next question is surrounding, peer support in your work. How does it impact your work? How does it impact your continued success? And how does that tie in?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm very fortunate in that we do have a network of Goodwills, and we have a network of Goodwill CEOs. So we help each other. We share information. We share materials, from marketing materials to training materials. And we have a national office that also provides a great deal of support. Most nonprofits do not have that support. Even nonprofits that are arms of a national don't have what I found from talking to some of my colleagues who represent other not-for-profits, they don't have the collegiate nature
Yeah.
within their realms that I described that we have within Goodwill. And it's very unusual. So much so that when someone leaves Goodwill, and it doesn't even matter whether they leave Goodwill at a top executive level or whether they're in middle management, or even in front line, because it trickles down. So the support that I get, I trickle that down to my direct reports. It trickles down to their direct reports. It trickles down to frontline workers. And people will tell you when they work at Goodwill, they leave and they go to work from someplace else. It's like, it's just not the same.
That's pretty special.
What it is, it's a feeling. It's just not the same. But that feeling is support.
Yeah.
It's really support, no matter whether it has anything to do with work or not.
Yeah.
If you're struggling with something at home, with a sickness, with a loved one, or, your kids have just, thrown up their hands and they're just not cooperating with you,
Yeah.
there's
Later. Yes. Later today. Yeah.
yeah. And so it's that collective support that we feel. And then because we feel it, we give it. And, I promote that with my staff, but I know that other Goodwill CEOs do the same thing. So it is very much, and there are times when, there's some friction, certainly. But it does not override the long-term support, especially if you're in this for a little while. We call it bleeding blue. We bleed Goodwill blue. And we understand the mission. We understand the legacy. And that's what's missing with a lot of organizations, or organizations that are trying to build a legacy. And so
Yeah.
there's a legacy that is rooted in our history that goes back more than 100 years. You can't erase that.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. And I really admire and enjoy companies who can take what is working and build on that, and also go, this no longer serves us because it was 100 years ago. And so let's move, like, how do we move beyond that conversation?
Right. And there's so many parts that you shouldn't move beyond, because it's part of the culture. So you have to understand it. And I always invite CEOs who are new, and I send them information if they need it. Listen, here's the history. Here's what you need to know. Here are the books that you need to read. This is what our founder said on his dying bed. All of those things, because it builds into the culture. Even though we're autonomous organizations, we all have a separate board of directors. We have the freedom to make decisions that's best for our community. So that's the wonderful part of it. But there's that history and that legacy that really calls you into subjection, and it calls you to a higher place where it's not just a job. It can never be a job.
Yeah.
It truly is a calling.
I think, the calling piece, I think, is really critical too. And why a lot of people get into social impact work in the first place, right? They feel this, it's a very deep feeling inside of them that they need to be part of this.
Right.
Okay. So this has been fantastic. Love so much of what you've been saying, Kimberly. It's fantastic. We met through the Nonprofit Hive. Like you said, first chat was together, which was really fun for me. I always love to have a few chats a week. What have you found since you've been a Hive member with all of this experience? I know that we have members who have said, oh, Kimberly was fantastic. She knows all this stuff. But on your end, what have you found you've gotten out of these chats?
What I love about these chats, and anytime I can get outside of the Goodwill world, is it expands my mind to think about things in a way that I might not have considered them before. The world of nonprofits is so vast. And, even though we all kind of fall under that umbrella of being a nonprofit, there's so many different things that we do to strengthen our communities and different ways that we do it. So the mission is completed, but the mission can be completed in 100 different ways. And so I enjoy finding out about all those different ways, because sometimes it then triggers something, that might be more effective or more impactful if I took a page from their book and did that. Or that's something I've never thought about. I wonder if that's a need, and I can do some research and a community needs assessment around something to see, how that might work. And in other cases, it could even lead to a partnership. How can I partner with individuals? Because I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I don't have to provide everything. But who can I partner with to solve this issue or meet this need in my community?
I think that's hit the nail on the head of what I've been hoping and dreaming about here, is just what happens when you put brilliant social impact individuals in a one-to-one conversation. And it's very cool to see what's evolving, because there's some younger folks who are joining and brand new to social impact, and they're asking some of the questions probably the whole industry should
Yeah.
be taking to heart, right? Like, why
Yeah.
are we doing it this way? And what other, technologies exist out there? Or, why is this legacy system in place? And for some of them, it's an education campaign on their part to learn more about social impact, but sometimes it's just as educational for the rest of us who have been doing things a certain
Yeah.
way for a while. So
Well, something you touched on something I think is really important. The volunteer, the donor, the supporter, the worker today is much more savvy and caring than 20 or 30 years ago. It's not that our generations before were not caring, but they cared in a different way and they trusted.
yeah, the trust was higher.
Today, it's like, okay, we're going to trust but verify.
Yeah.
And so we want to know, what is your impact? What's your budget? What are you spending on such and such? Is that a good use of the funds that I'm going to give you? And it doesn't matter if those funds are $20 or $2,500 or $25,000 or 2.5 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we have to be much more diligent in sharing information and being open with information and making sure that we're tracking things in a manner that is a luminary, so we can see what's going on. I'm a data geek. I love data. And the more I look at it, it will trigger another question and then
Yeah.
another question. And then that helps me to figure out, okay, how can we move the needle? Or are we just doing an activity? Or are we really moving the needle? And that's what, particularly your younger generation, they want to see that. How are you moving the needle?
Yeah. They want to see impact. And I think they're right in shifting it. Like we talked about overhead earlier and that whole admin cost. Me personally, even, I'm like the very edge of the older millennial era, and everyone younger than me, I think, is also looking at it and going, I don't really care what admin cost is. What was your impact? Like, what was the impact overall? Like, if you did a 40% admin cost, but you did this much more on your impact side, I think like that for me is a total win.
Right.
So, like the savvy donor, right, who wants to see a different set of metrics, and nonprofits have to figure out how to meet them where they're at if they want to continue to engage with
Mhm.
newer generations, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this was fantastic. You're brilliant and so easy to talk to, Kimberly. And before I forget, because like you noted, prolific writer, and I read some of your stuff as it comes out, enjoy it very much on LinkedIn, and a podcast too. Am I
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. And you've been an author of a book, at least one or multiple,
I
right?
have 3 books, and I'm co-authoring a 4th book that's coming out later this year with Lisa Nichols.
Amazing. Okay, this is great. So give us just a little quick blurb on how people can find out more about yourself and the incredible work you're doing in this space on a more personal level.
Yes, you can go to motivationalmuse.com. That's where you will find, I also consult, so you'll find all of my information there for consulting, public speaking, any type of information that you're looking for. I'm also on all the social media. So I am on LinkedIn, Kimberly Bussey Lewis. I'm on X, used to be Twitter, at Kimberly Lewis 5.
Okay.
And Instagram, on all the things. So you can find me under Motivational Muse, or you can find me under Kimberly B. Lewis.
Okay.
B as in
Amazing.
boy, and B as in busy. And
I don't know how you do it all. When you describe it and say it out loud, yeah, gives my startup brain like a little bit of a headache.
right.
But
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this with me, Kimberly. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, cheers.